What's up, everybody? We're back with another new episode of the Last Wave podcast. We dive into topics like ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, nerd stuff, and conspiracies. As always, thanks for listening. It means a whole lot to us. Check out our Facebook page as well as our Twitter and our Patreon.com. Patreon is a subscription service that helps content creators like myself. We have it set super cheap, like $1 or $2 a month, and we're always putting cool stuff on all of our social media accounts. As always, thanks for listening. And today we're going to go over sightings of prehistoric dinosaurs. Okay, we're going to start with what is surprisingly the most reported type of dinosaur or prehistoric creature sighted. That would be pterosaurs, or basically flying dinosaurs. There is a famous alleged photo, actually two, of Civil War era soldiers standing over the body of a pterosaur that they allegedly shot down. Its large wings spread out and its head can be clearly seen in the photo. One of these photos, however, has been proven to be a hoax. It was taken as a publicity shot for the 2000 television series Freakylings and features Civil War reenactors standing over a prop pterodactyl that was used on the show. The photo was digitally altered to make it look old and beat up, and famed cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman tracked down the prop pterosaur itself, and he actually has it today. He actually bought it, so that was probably a good step for being a cryptozoologist. Anytime you can buy a pterodactyl is a good day. So it actually currently resides in the International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, Maine, where you can go and see it today. Coleman took great photos of it, but you can't see very well in the staged photo, but at least it's an acknowledged fact that it is the same prop. The second, however, and I will be putting up these photos on Facebook, Twitter, all of that good stuff. The second photo is thought to be a hoax, but it's still in contention and looks much more realistic. Given the detail of the creature, its size, which is actually massive, the photo matches the discolorations and effects of photos from the time period. However, there are some discrepancies people bring out, such as the position of the wings, the pattern on the dinosaur's wings as well, the way the light is supposed to be hitting it versus the way it is hitting it. The crazy thing is that those are the main argument. It's a freaking dinosaur, and the only Photoshop might be a pattern of sunlight. We would not even know what the actual pattern on a dinosaur's wing should look like. So how can we really know if it's real? Either way, what follows are some reported sightings dating back quite a ways. In the American South and Native tribes, we have legends dating back to a time immemorial of things like thunderbirds, which are great flying birds whose wings create thunder every time they flap their wings. And there are accounts all throughout history in the Southwest and into Mexico. Far more reports than one would expect. When I set out to do this episode, I was quite surprised at the sheer number of reports. I didn't cover, obviously, all the ones that I found, but definitely pulled some interesting ones. In 1890, two ranchers in Arizona reported to the Tombstone newspaper that they had chased an animal as it flew, and they stated it resembled a large alligator with a long tail and a beak. Going further back, a pictograph or rock carving was found in 1784 of a pterosaur. While old, the rock carving was clearly made after these beasts should have been well extinct. We will circle back around to the Americas, but the African sightings have to be mentioned as well. Out of Central Africa, that's some of the most interesting anecdotes have actually come. And these are going to be, a couple different things. These are going to be mainly pterosaurs. So, here we have in Africa, while traveling through Zambia in 1923, Frank H. Melland collected reports from natives of an aggressive flying reptile they called Kongomoto, which means overwhelmer of boats. The natives, who were occasionally tormented by these creatures, described them as being featherless with smooth skin, having a beak full of teeth, and a wingspan between 4 and 7 feet. When shown illustrations of pterosaurs, Mellon reported, the natives identified them as most resembling the Kongomoto. Now, I probably mentioned this later in my show notes, but I always, well, most of the time, tend to rely on reports given by jungle natives and tribespeople, tribesmen, things of that nature. It makes way more sense to me that people who have been living in the area for thousands of years know the difference between a bird and a pterodactyl, or a what is it, an alligator versus a dinosaur. You really tend to think that they would know the difference. So anyway, in 1925, a native man was allegedly attacked by a creature that he identified as a pterosaur. This occurred near a swamp in Rhodesia, where the man suffered a large wound in his chest that he says was caused by the monster's long beak. In 1980s, noted cryptozoologist Roy McCall led an expedition into Namibia, from which he had heard reports of prehistoric-looking creature with a wingspan of up to 30 feet. So again, not only throughout history, but throughout the world do we have sightings that have really persisted throughout time. Going back now, out of Africa, to America. I know we're jumping around a lot, but that's the way research goes. You just kind of find stuff as you go, you write it down, you see what happens, and that's where we get. So we're just kind of jumping all over the world. But these are some sightings that I tracked down that happened in America. So in May 1961 in New York State, a businessman flying his private plane over the Hudson River Valley claimed that he was buzzed by a large flying creature that he said looked like a pterodactyl. In the early 1960s in California, a couple driving through Trinity National Forest reported seeing the silhouette of a giant bird, in quotation marks, that they estimated to have a wingspan of 14 feet. They later described it as resembling a pterodactyl. This one, I don't know, a silhouette. That could be literally anything. An eagle shadow on the ground with the sun behind it can look massive. So that one is taken with a grain of salt. In January in 1976, Harlingen, Texas, teens Jackie Davis and Tracy Lawson reported seeing a bird, again on quotation marks, on the ground that stood 5 feet tall, was dark in color, with a bald head and a face like a gorilla's, with a sharp 6-inch long beak. A subsequent investigation by their parents uncovered tracks that had 3 toes and were 8 inches across. This one actually sounds interesting, given the face, obviously. Excuse me. However, there are tons of different pterosaur breeds and things of that nature. There's just a tremendous amount. If you've ever seen Jurassic World, where all of them are released onto the crowd, I mean, it's just a bucket load of different kinds. Even some with what are akin to normal dinosaur heads, shorter snouts, and extreme crests of many different colors. So the possibility is out there. I don't know about a gorilla's face with a beak, but when you're scared, you see something you've never seen before, you start to notice things that are out of the ordinary. So it is in the realm of possibilities. In September 1982, Los Fresnos, Texas, an ambulance driver named James Thompson was stopped while driving on Highway 100 by his sighting of a large bird-like object flying low over the area. He described it as black or grayish with a rough texture but no feathers. It had a 5 to 6 foot wingspan, a hump on the back of its head, and almost no neck at all. After consulting some books to identify the creature, he decided it looked most like a pterosaur. An article that I found with sadly no date on it, but seemed to be from around 2016, stated some more of these modern sightings. A woman driving through Arizona, again, here we go with the southwest, reported seeing a large bird-like creature flying low over the ground. Which is another thing that we continue to see in these sightings, is that these creatures sometimes fly quite low, possibly to hunt. You're never sure, but that's what I would surmise. Anyway, she reported a 20-foot wingspan, grayish-brown color, and a long neck. There are two smaller sightings at the end of the article, stating that in July of 2015, two people in Nevada reported seeing a creature that reminded them of a pterosaur, a flying reptile that is, again, believed to be extinct for 65 million years now. 2 weeks later, a minister and his daughter near the same area claimed to have seen an unidentified flying creature that looked like, as they stated, it was straight out of Jurassic Park. So imagine my surprise during research that I found an article from 2018 saying that there had been multiple sightings in the state of North Carolina as well. That was quite a shock, considering most of the sightings I had seen were in the Southwest. But one of them that I found super intriguing was from a lady who reported a large pterosaur-like creature appearing over Raleigh, North Carolina that year. The interesting part was the details that she had. They had a long tail with a diamond-shaped bulb on it, said Cynthia, 20, who spotted the mysterious flying thing at a North Raleigh bus stop. It was dark brown in color, she says. Now, the details is what got me on that one. The diamond-shaped bulb is something that most people would not know, just, every day, not ever seeing a pterodactyl or pterosaur. But there are numerous types of pterosaur that have that feature. So again, I did find that interesting. And according to Jonathan Whitcomb, a pterosaur and cryptid researcher from NC, there are reports of creatures from 33 states and Washington, D.C. The ones from North Carolina all report similar creatures, but occur from years spanning quite the time frame, from 1990, early 2000s, 2010s, and as recently as I said, from 2018. So there is plenty of evidence to support that these creatures could still be flying above us. Some of the more interesting pieces of evidence I found were that these sightings often happen in open areas in states like Arizona, and most of the ones in North Carolina happen in Raleigh or eastward, which contain little to no mountainous regions suitable for roosting, as you would expect. It appears hard evidence and a solid conclusion on modern pterosaurs is still up in the air. You're welcome for that pun. All right, so what we're going to start doing, because I've started to make my episodes a little bit longer, I'm going to take just like a quick 5 or 6 second break, and this would be a good place to stop because we're going to move on to slightly different topics. But we're just going to start doing that. That way I can get a drink of water, keep going. So I'll be back in just a few seconds. All right, we're back. So, we have extensively covered the history of flying dinosaur reports, but what about seldom and random reports of land-based creatures? Now, first and foremost, I don't plan on covering Nessie or other plesiosaur-type creatures. That would be best left to its own episode, and I feel like it's kind of been done to death, honestly, anyway. I don't really want to dive into like broad Bigfoot sightings unless there's something incredibly rare, like the episode I posted of invisible or cloaked Bigfoots. Because again, that's something that's been reported on for forever, and it's been books and movies and all that good stuff. So again, not covering Nessie in this. Obviously, everyone knows about Nessie. I will also be leaving out Mokele Mbembe, the African dinosaur, which I plan to do an episode on that as well. That's been one of my favorite cryptids for as long as I've been studying or been into this topic. So I'm going to do an episode on that one as well. So let's look at other types of dinosaurs that have been spotted in times where they should not have been, following along the path of the famous Mokele Mbembe. However, is another dinosaur from the Congo region of Africa. And let me equivocally state, again, my opinion on this. You see a lot of expeditions that go into these places, but they completely miss or dismiss the reports of villagers and those that are living in the regions. As I said before, these people are not mistaking a Bigfoot for an orangutan. They're not mistaking, crocodiles or alligators for flying or climbing dinosaurs. It's just not happening. So I really, really got to say, I believe that these these people know what they're seeing. And honestly, they have no. It's kind of like certain people bringing forth a UFO report. These tribes people and people of that nature, Aborigines, they have no use for bringing forward these stories. You're coming to them with looking for these reports. So they're not really getting paid for it or getting any publicity or anything good for it from it, honestly. But again, these African tribes and Aborigines often live in the same region for thousands of years. So again, they know the difference. Anyway, the first report that we have comes from a creature known as, and I'm going to try not to absolutely murder the names of some of these things, Nguma monene. It is said to be a huge lizard with a large ridge on its back. It is said to be upwards of 30 feet long as well. A crocodile could match the description minus the large ridge, but let's be honest, a 30-foot croc is scarier than most random dinosaur sightings. So I would be much more concerned if it was just a 30-foot crocodile. Some reports suggest that it could be a descendant of Spinosaurus, which most people know as the villain from Jurassic Park 3, but it is reported to be rather low to the ground, so it could be a Stegosaurus type of descendant as well. I want to say there's one type of dinosaur I really thought about, but I don't know why I didn't mark down the name. It's not a iguanodon. It's a troodon or something of that nature. It's basically a very squat alligator type creature, but it has a short snout and does have a large ridge. Not sure why I didn't put that in there, but I'll try to post a picture of that as well as some other pictures, basically photos of some of these sightings, some alleged sightings and stuff like that. So we'll get it up on the Facebook page and all that good stuff. Anyway, moving on, but still in Africa, the savannah region of Cameroon, there is the Ngobu, and it is said to resemble a smaller rhinoceros-like animal, but with multiple horns, including a horn frill around its neck area. This, of course, resembles reports of Triceratops-like dinosaurs known as ceratopsians. So, an interesting non-modern account that I ran across was the Sarouche. It is a draconic type creature depicted in the Babylonian artwork. So this goes way back. This ancient artwork depicts a strangely similar to the iguanodon that I mentioned before, which should have been extinct even long before the Babylonians were around. So even in you start to see stuff, and while I didn't write it down here, because I'll probably do a side episode, because sneak peek, I kind of think not primitive, obviously, but late forms of mastodons and things of that nature, as well as possibly some types of dinosaurs, could have been used to aid in creating the pyramid-like structures we see around the world. It's a really complicated theory, but there is a temple called Angkor Wat. Most people at least know the name, and it's a large temple, and it's in, I want to say, Cambodia, but there's actually a symbol carved into it of a Stegosaurus-like dinosaur. And it's clear as day the people that built the temple should have not known about it at all. But I don't know. That's just again, a going theory that I have that I'm kind of working with. But with this Babylonian artwork, the pictographs, you start to see these dinosaurs throughout history that start pop up in different images and things of that nature. So you do start to see not necessarily modern sightings as well. Now we kind of expect to see ancient creatures somehow maintain a life in discrete jungle areas. But what about dinosaurs literally running around in Texas? An article I found mentioned a few accounts of bipedal, small T-Rex-like dinosaurs in a small town in Texas. Reports from around 2013 start to surface of the area near Hebbronville, Texas. One person sleeping in their apartment when they were awakened by large footfalls heard outside their window. Then an animal with an unknown screech that they have never heard made a sound just outside their home. They've lived in the area their entire life, and they report never hearing that sound before. Nothing came out of that until another local recounted seeing a small T-Rex-like dinosaur run in front of their car, clearly illuminated by the headlights. The reports started to come in more and more frequently throughout the area after that. Multiple residents of the surrounding towns reported different run-ins with these similar creatures. One well-described report was from someone driving in the area, as mentioned by one of the residents who had already put forth in their report. While he was driving near McAllen, Texas, he described the same thing we have seen here in this area. And again, this is a report given to someone who had already seen one being recounted, so it's going to sound weird when I read it. While he was driving near McAllen, Texas, he described seeing the same thing we have seen. It was 2 to 3 feet tall, with a large head and a long tail. It ran on 2 legs and was very dark in color. The 2 creatures we saw were dark brown and walking quickly on 2 legs also. It was about 4:30 p.m. and we watched them for about 20 seconds as they moved towards the dead end of our road. We got a very good look, and for a few nights after that, we heard short shrills and screams coming from the brush at the end of the road. So that's a pretty good description. I mean, you seem like you got a pretty good sighting of what could possibly, and they say small T-Rex, but that height range would, denote a velociraptor of some sort, something smaller. Another description comes in from someone who was walking home one evening and began to see plumes of dust off to their right in a field, as if something was running towards the road. And they recount about 40 feet in front of me was what I can only describe as a little T-Rex dinosaur, about 2 to 2.5 feet high, or in height. It didn't stop running as it dashed across the road and into a smaller field. It was a light reddish brown, stood on 2 legs, and had a long tail that stretched straight out as it ran. And now again, this is an anatomical feature that unless you have some kind of knowledge, in the mechanics of dinosaur movement, that you wouldn't necessarily think to recognize the tail being straight out. And that's, to me, that strikes me as just it's using its normal running features for straight speed, head down, tail straight. It was just booking it more or less. So again, that's kind of something interesting that these people, you can't just dismiss them as, I saw a little dinosaur. They're giving you clear details. Actually, a well-known report actually came into Coast to Coast AM and described seeing a similar creature while a man described seeing them while dirt biking with friends. This one was yellowish green in color, same height as the others, but was described with an egg-shaped head, which made me think of small dinosaurs known for their ramming dome atop of their head, Pachycephalosaurus, or Pachy's as they are commonly known. So again, with all these sightings, we're right back in this southwestern United States. You do find Native American legends of portals and stargates from these areas as well. There are also modern groups who gather in areas like Sedona, Arizona, which is supposed to be a hot spot for these gateways and for portals and things of that nature. So I say to propose the possibility of time wells or time portals opening up and these creatures coming through for a short while. Glitches in time, you can find research on that. People happen to be walking somewhere and all of a sudden this town that was there 40 or 50 years ago is right in front of them, and it shouldn't be. So you see these, I don't know what to call them. Time wells is a good description. That's one I've heard. Time discrepancies you can use as well. Basically seeing a point in time that shouldn't be there. So again, this could be a description for what's happening with Nessie as well, if it is an actual dinosaur. That's the only semi-logical, and I use that term loosely, thought that I could bring forth regarding the sheer number of sightings. If we are to suspect that they are actual sightings and people are really seeing these things, it could be hallucinations, mass delusions. But it is hard to believe that in the flat and arid areas of the Americas, you find these creatures that most likely lived in mainly jungle climates. However, maybe it is possible that certain areas are susceptible to these time portals or whatever you would call them, and these things just happen. However, I will say that the fact that these bipedal lizards are only a few feet high could possibly allow them to live and flourish and maybe even evolve into this form in these arid climates. They would not need as much space to eat, breed, or drink. So the chances are slim, but I would say there may be a chance there that these creatures are not necessarily dinosaur, maybe a hybrid of some sort, something along those lines. Because you do obviously have reptiles living in those areas and flourishing in those areas. So, it's just so tough to say. It's a very, very small possibility. But it is an interesting thought to be sure. And maybe one day we'll actually get some hard evidence, get one on camera. At least they can't be disproven. And, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see something. But, all right. So I'm kind of enjoying this new longer format. Again, we're only almost 30 minutes. And, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours long. But for just doing it myself, it's, that's a long time just to be talking. So, as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out on all our social media, Twitter, Facebook. I put stuff on Facebook literally every day. Still in the search for some co-hosts and part-time co-hosts and guests and things like that. We're still getting off the ground. Last month was really great. Over 11 hours of listening time. That to some of these big YouTube people, that's not a lot. To me, that's incredible. So I think we're doing great. I really appreciate it. I mean, if you put out a 10 or 15-minute video and people are getting 11 hours of it, that's pretty solid. I'll take that any day. So again, thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.